Thank you, President. My German is to the Premier, and the action I seek is for the government to outline why it has not yet provided a redress scheme for care leavers who experience physical, psychological and emotional abuse while in Victorian orphanages. The government has announced a number of redress schemes for those who have been harmed by historical actions from state policies and practices. This includes the recent announcement of redress for mothers who had their children forcibly removed in the historical practice of adoption, for children born out of wedlock, as well as reparations for Aboriginal Victorians forcibly removed from their families before 1977. These schemes will provide $100,000 in redress to each person who experienced harm by these practices. Care leavers hold no grudge against others who have been given redress, but it's hard for them not to feel envy and disappointment that their own harm is not being recognised in a similar way. Historical sexual abuse of care leavers in orphanages, children's homes, missions and foster care is covered under the National Redress Scheme, though I will note with a heavy heart that this scheme has re-traumatised many victims in the process. Inconsistencies between claims and victims being denied the maximum redress amount, for example because they were sexually assaulted only once when they were living in an orphanage at the age of 5, as if this isn't horrific enough, defies logic and demonstrates we still have a long way to go in understanding trauma. The Care Leavers Australasia Network has long campaigned for recognition and redress to extend to physical, psychological and emotional abuse and child labour practices in state institutions. Some of these care leavers have recounted that while they did not experience sexual abuse themselves, they experienced the trauma as a child of witnessing it being perpetrated on others. Significantly, many of them reported childhood completely absent of love or a sense of belonging. We know the trauma of an absence of attachment and emotional security has on an individual and the profound impact that it has on their identity and their life's trajectory. Back in 2004, a federal Senate inquiry recognised the history of cruelty inflicted on children raised as wards of the state. It recommended redress back then, and Premier Steve Bracks delivered an apology on behalf of Victoria in 2006. In that apology, the Premier committed to working with survivors of abuse and neglect in care to promote the healing process, but formal redress for emotional and physical trauma has stalled since then. In the absence of the Commonwealth action, as with other redress, Victoria could and should lead the way. So I ask the government, what are you waiting for? Care leavers recently issued their plea on the steps of this parliament, and I ask the government to please hear them, please see them and deliver to care leavers the recognition that they deserve.